The content provided in this program is solely for information purposes. You should always seek advice of physicians, therapists, and other professionals for diagnosis or treatment. Hello and welcome to today's program, a 30-minute segment with a direct focus on those with special needs. Whether they're differently abled or diagnosed with a form of neurodisability, these citizens, young and senior, still experience difficulty in claiming a fair space in society. Have you ever noticed a child or a young adult display what we deem unusual behavior? Perhaps you know of a child who has been diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. What do you do to help? If you are a parent, a grandparent, a sibling, a neighbor, or a friend, this program is with you in mind. My guest today is a retired school teacher. Her name is Joy Valdez. Joy is a volunteer with the NGO Autistic Society of Trinidad and Tobago. Here's how Joy, a simple woman, was inspired to help in her own special way.
My interest was piqued many moons ago when I had a neighbor who was diagnosed as being on the spectrum. A young boy. When he was born, his mom saw that he was deaf. And because he wasn't listening, obeying instructions, and so she took him to the clinic, and after he might have been in his toddling years, that they diagnosed him as being on the spectrum, as having autism. I didn't know about it. She told me. He interacted with my children. He would be in my home. He looked there was nothing that would tell you that he was, he had special needs. Internet wasn't so available as it was. What I did was observe him. There were times that he would seem so intelligent, and yet there were times he would seem to be incapable of doing simple things. This is just from my observation. And I remember his dad telling me once that these were his words, there are certain things that he just doesn't understand. This was quite new to the parents too. Right? I remember telling the mother about the society being formed, that I had heard that the society was formed. I don't think that they followed up that way.
Why do you think parents may not want to follow up?
Well, I think there is always that initial denial that something is wrong. I believe, even based on my experiences interacting with parents here, I believe that they admit it, that it takes them a while to actually come to terms with the fact that my child is different.
Well, I've gathered that you've learned quite a lot over the years, but what really stands out for you?
I would say the need for the society to become more educated, more aware that this particular disorder exists. The parents are always saying that, because I do more work with the parents than persons on the spectrum, they're always saying how difficult it is at times to be with their children, the response that they get. You have children who are not verbal, they don't speak, right? So when they become irritated, they might scream, or in terms of obeying instructions, you might see them pulling at the parents.
Well, how do you see society treating with those on the spectrum and in general those under the umbrella of special needs?
Autism is now, to me, it's just people are now becoming aware of even the word autism. I'm not sure how many people will take time out to really find out exactly what it's like. So you just see this child behaving strange and you feel it's just a behavioral problem. Sometimes the parent might be too embarrassed or too involved in trying to calm the child that to take time now to explain what is happening. Sometimes I remember there was a parent that was here, where she used to come from south, and she said one day she was traveling with her son on the bus, and as he got out of the bus he just darted and started running. Thankfully there were 2 police officers, and she just explained to them he's on the spectrum, he's autistic, and they were able to run and hold him for her and calm him down a bit. She had to try and calm him down. But it all all is related to behaviors on the spectrum.
What would your advice be to those listening to this interview?
We are now in the information age, so I would suggest that just as we Google everything else, after this program, Google autism spectrum disorder, Google it and see what. Perhaps it might help you understand somebody that you have been noticing that's a bit different, and educate yourself. As if for everything else, educate yourself.
How would you describe autism?
It's a unique disorder. It's not a disease, right? You can't catch it. My understanding from what I've read and from workshops that I have attended, persons on the spectrum perceive the world differently. There are some basic traits, I would say, in terms of children who are autistic. They tend to focus on one thing, so that there are behaviors that you might notice. People tend to describe them as being in their own world. Remember I said that my neighbor thought that her son was deaf. It was because she would be giving him instructions, calling him, but he was so focused on whatever he was doing that he would not pay attention. Now, I am not an expert in terms of, I'm just around the children. I know there are times you might see them flapping, just, moving their arms. Some speak, others don't. They are sensitive in different ways. Some might be sensitive to light, some might be sensitive to touch, so that they won't accept hugs. Some might be sensitive, as I say, to sound, so you see them covering the ears.
Eye contact?
Never. That is one of the signs that they tell you early if you have a young child, and they're not making eye contact with you. That's one of the signs that could make you aware that there might be something different. They don't look at you.
All right, so take us through a day as a volunteer.
Well, I'll tell you, when I started volunteering, I came initially to work with those on the spectrum. I had kind of retooled myself as a teacher. I was teaching English, but then I always had this desire to do drama. So I went to the Creative Arts Center at UWI, and I did a certificate in theater. And so I decided I would come and do some volunteer work with the persons on the spectrum. But when I came, now they are a unique bunch. So those who might have been on level 3 would take me on, to use Trinidad parlance. But I noticed that it was the parents who were more interested in the activities that I was getting into. And I realized, I came speaking to the parents, I realized that they were having like a timeout. It was kind of good for them in terms. So I asked Terry, that is Mrs. Sunarine, if I could do some work with the parents. And so I started a little parent support group. And the main aim really was to just bring a little softness to their lives, because we don't have the facilities for a lot of these children. They are home. These parents are there with them 24/7. And we started with a few parents, and I started doing some dramatic activities. And while we would be outside doing that, it's the adult group that I'm working with, I should say, while they are inside, those who are trained at the society, doing activities with them and helping them along. I would be outside with the parents doing so.
Do you have more females and males in terms of parents showing up for these support sessions?
Very much so. As a matter of fact, I remember when we got the first dad joining the group, I was so happy, and he still comes, but his wife has joined him now, so sometimes he slips away. It's just there's another gentleman. Unfortunately, though, things happen, life happens. We had a couple who used to come with their son, and that man passed on. The wife still comes from time to time, but you would imagine it's difficult. We have another male who came, and he's not well, so he doesn't come as often as, as other parents. So,
what's the biggest challenge for a volunteer, though?
I would like to see more things happen. I would like to see a greater awareness. I would like to see help for the parents. I would like to see structures set up, because I am talking to you about what I do, but this is just once a week for just about 2 hours. You know what I mean? So I would like to see more of the parents need time out. They need help. And that for me is the challenge. I would like to see more training happen. I know the society from time to time they conduct workshops. There are some persons who come in from abroad to help, but not enough of that is happening. And that is what I would like. I think that's a challenge. I think, that the powers that be could get more involved. I think our society could care a little bit more. Every year we have, in the month of April, that's Autism Awareness Month, and we get involved in activities, and there are radio programs, things that happen during that month, but the rest of the year it's
Yeah, that was my next question, because you mentioned a greater awareness. Other than a month dedicated to autism awareness, in what other ways can we get that message out?
Well, for instance, what you're doing now, I hope it would, stimulate persons to become more aware. And if each one tells one, and I did a little project while I was here. I also write, so I did a book, a small booklet called We Live and Love To, Meet Some Persons with Autism. In this book, parents share their stories. They tell about, just a little snippet of a day in the life of their child, or something that the child has done. And they could start by coming we did it as a fundraiser, so they could start by coming and, inquiring about it and purchasing it, so that the society can get help in terms of little projects that they want to do too.
We in Trinidad and Tobago often boast about our diverse culture, but do we really embrace diversity? There may be parents, NGOs, and therapists who would say otherwise, especially when it comes to accepting those with special needs. Now, the question these days, why is inclusion so important?
Why is it so important that any child be included in the system? They are our children, and they are little human beings like the rest of our children. Because they have a disability should not exclude them from what is available. So we should cater for them in times passed, a lot of these children were hidden. They were actually hidden. I remember in my early years growing up, and we just knew this lady had a child that, well, something was wrong. That's all we knew. Something was wrong. But that child remained hidden, never went to school, whatever. But times have changed. Help is available. Mightn't be as much as we want to have, but help is available. So that if there's anybody listening and this is your situation, come to terms with it. Try to come to terms with it. Because you need to help the child. You need to help your offspring. I don't know if this is possible, but at an early stage, because a lot of the children are not diagnosed early enough, because the literature shows now that if you have early diagnosis, you can help them to move up the levels, right? So that for the powers that be, I would suggest that we have a system where our children can be tested quite early for things like autism spectrum disorder. I would also advise that somewhere in the curriculum that focus be put on the training system, that focus be placed on special needs children. I'm not sure, to be very honest, what it's like now. I know that the universities, some of the we've been having at the center, we've been having persons coming to do their practicum here when they go to do their degrees, but somewhere in the training, I think that focus should be highlighted. Especially, I'm not sure how much emphasis is placed on this, as a point of focus for the planners.
You're listening to Special Needs with me, Karen Das. My guest is retired school teacher, now volunteer at the Autistic Society of Trinidad and Tobago, Joy Valdez. If you have the responsibility of taking care of a child or know of someone with special needs, here is some valuable advice.
If you can get the education that is necessary or get the information that is necessary to share with the family, that would help, I think. A lot of persons, well, those who are in the group, they will tell you that when they started, a lot of times the family weren't that involved. They didn't, because they didn't understand. You see, education will bring understanding. So if you are the one, it's your child, if you are the one who have to be the conveyor of that information, then do it. You have to, it will be difficult in the beginning. This is what happens when you find yourself in a situation that is challenging. You somehow tend to think that you are alone. And I'm saying to you, know that you are not alone in this situation. You are not the only person who has a child with special needs, who try to find that help. I would suggest that if you know somebody else who has a child on the spectrum, that you try to get information from that person. As I said, we're living in the information age and we Google everything so we can get information off the internet. But the human interaction, I think, is what does it. Because even in my little group, the little group that we have here, we've become a family. People can come in. There are times when they may be so stressed that they come and they would share and tears would be shed. You can just let it out. They would talk to one another about, so my child was doing that. These are all coping mechanisms that can be used. Don't isolate yourself. Don't allow the fact that your child might be different for you to stay alone. There's help.
It's said unselfish and noble actions are the most radiant pages in the biography of souls. How much attention do we actually give to volunteers?
Well, I don't know that we pay much attention to it. It exists, and thank God it does, because there's so much that is done by the volunteers, So I don't think that everybody has, there's so much conscious, well, she's a volunteer, she's helping or whatever. But it certainly helps the society. And where would we be without our volunteers? Think about all the NGOs that they have. Think about, society exists, and we have to coexist, and we have to make life a better place.
But how has volunteering impacted your personal life, Joy?
Well, I will tell you that it brings me a lot of personal satisfaction. As you get older, you come to understand that it's not all about you. For me, this is just giving back. I've learned a lot. I've really learned a lot. Being here, working with these persons on the spectrum, it's an education for me. Just the fact of helping, just knowing that you're helping somebody else brings happiness. I'd like to suggest that persons listening would, find somewhere to place themselves in terms of giving help, offering their services as long as you can. Because there's something inside of us that I believe calls out for that kind of activity. Being in relationships where we are not just getting, we're giving. We're loving each other there.
Well, it's important to note there are many ways we can help improve the lives of others. If you are interested in volunteering, feel free to get in touch with the Autistic Society of Trinidad and Tobago.
We just say contact us. We try to run volunteer orientation like a couple times for the year, usually around September, sometimes in time for our camps, which happen during the August holidays. So we run that maybe 2-3 times a year. And so if people are interested in volunteering, they can just give us a call or email or visit our Facebook, leave us a message. And once we have enough people to do one big volunteer orientation session and they're able to come, that's great.
But it's necessary that they attend the orientation. We ask persons, we encourage persons, if you're really serious about volunteering, you must attend the orientation.
Yeah, but that's particularly for volunteers who are also hoping to work with our kids, right? Because we definitely want those people to be sensitized. We also have corporate organizations that want to volunteer to do other kinds of work around the society, whether it be that they want to help us with our sensory garden, which we've had a lot of help from Unicoma with that. So we've also had different types of volunteers over the years where they may just want to do one specific thing, whether it be assisting with the actual grounds. Sometimes we have volunteers who say, I just want to assist you all with fundraising or assist you all at your events. So there are different ways in which people can volunteer when they come to work with us, as well as working and interacting with families and children. Okay, we have a lot of numbers, so I'm going to call them one by one. At Autism Place, you can contact us via telephone at 646-5506 or 225-6808. You can also get us on WhatsApp at 684-4010. At Point Fortin, you can contact the Life Skills Center at 270-9224. That's our numbers. We can also be contacted via email, which is autismplace@gmail.com or autismtt@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Autistic Society of Trinidad and Tobago. We have a public page as well as a private group page for parents. And we also have a website, which is autismtt.org.
Thank you for listening. This has been Special Needs with me, Karen Das. My guest, retired school teacher and volunteer Joy Valdez. The content provided in this program is solely for information purposes. You should always seek advice of physicians, therapists, and other professionals for diagnosis or treatment.